Hello students, welcome to KENE'S Educare, a group of KENE solutions. This is part 2 of lesson number 14, Natural Resources. So as you all know, in the last part, we started discussing about the lesson Natural Resources, where we saw how exactly natural resources are further classified on the basis of different criterias, on the basis of their origin, on the basis of you can say on different types of you can say whether they are renewable, they are non-renewable, right? And we even discussed on the importance of natural resources and what are we exactly going to study in the lesson. And if you remember, I have shown you all I have shown you all the slides, like what exactly we are going to study in the whole lesson. Along with that, even like I showed you the exercise question. So you are aware of, like, now you are a friend to the lesson, you know what exactly we are going to study in the lesson. Okay, it's not new to you, right? So before I proceed with this part, today in this part I will be starting with the exact lesson natural resources. Okay, where we will be discussing the initial part, like what is natural resource, then what are the different types of natural resource. We will be starting with that, and then after that, like we will move on to the topics discussing on renewable, non-renewable, different types of natural resources and all. So before proceeding on to this part, I want each one of you to please revise whatever notes you have taken in your book in part 1, because that was the basic part for the lesson that we had, right? So I want each one of you to please revise each and everything that we discussed. So I hope every one of you are revising whatever we studied so far in part 1 and whatever notes you took in your book, because that was very important. That is the basic you can say concepts on the lesson natural resources, right? So once you're done with it, I'll be starting with this lesson itself. So now we can, according to me, we can start with the lesson, right? So over here, the first thing that we are going to study in the lesson, that is about the resources on the earth. What are we going to discuss? Resources on the earth. So see, the natural resources of the earth are air, water, soil, minerals, and living organisms, right? So these are some of the natural resources which are naturally present. So it includes air, water, soil, minerals, and all the other living organisms that exist, right? So the outer crust of the earth is the lithosphere. Now you might have studied this in grade 6 about lithosphere and all, right? So the outer crust of the earth that we have, we call that as lithosphere. Then the water, lithosphere includes the land. Okay. Then the water on the earth is the hydrosphere. Now hydro means water. So land is lithosphere, water is hydrosphere, and lastly the air that we have, the layer of air around the earth, that is atmosphere. So this is how we have three different types of spheres which are present, that is lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Okay, so living organisms, they are found where the atmosphere, hydrosphere, and lithosphere interact, and this total three spheres, they make up the biosphere of the earth. Like when all the three spheres come together, we know it as biosphere. So biosphere includes three different types of spheres. That is atmosphere, that is the layer of air around the earth. Hydrosphere is water on the earth, and lithosphere is the outer crust of the earth. Okay, and why these three spheres are important for living organisms? Because living organisms cannot survive without these three spheres, right? Air, water, and land. These are the basic needs of living organisms. So this is the reason that it becomes very important for all the living organisms on earth, right? So now I want each one of you to please write this in your book. I hope every one of you are writing this. Then the next thing that we have is to study about air, that is atmosphere, right? So we know that air is a mixture of gas, right? It doesn't have one single thing, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide. There are other gases as well which are present in air. So air is a mixture of gas like nitrogen, gases like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and other gases. Okay, so air doesn't only have oxygen and carbon dioxide in it. It has several other gases like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, sulfur dioxide, and there are so many other gases which are present. So during respiration, living organisms use oxygen to break down the glucose and get energy from their activities. Okay, so what we are doing, we are taking in oxygen and we are giving out glucose, and this oxygen is required. Like, let's suppose you're eating a chocolate. Okay, now after eating that chocolate, you will get glucose from it, and now to break that glucose so that you can get energy for doing work, you need oxygen. So this results, like when we are doing this, when the glucose is broken down into energy, for that oxygen is needed, and that results in the release of carbon dioxide. Okay, then burning of fuels also use oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Suppose you are burning fuel, when we are traveling somewhere, we are using the fuel, right, while we are driving somewhere. So that burning of the fuel also uses oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. Then during photosynthesis, this green plants, they will convert carbon dioxide into glucose in the presence of sunlight. What will happen? Green plants will convert carbon dioxide into glucose, and this will happen in the presence of sunlight. So this results in the release of oxygen. Okay, because we know that when plants are making their own food, the waste product that has been generated is glucose, right? Because along with glucose, they also emit out this oxygen in the air, which has been required by us. Okay, so this process helps us to maintain the oxygen carbon dioxide balance in the nature, because if the balance has not been maintained, then what will happen? Let's imagine that carbon dioxide has increased in the air, then it can lead to condition called global warming. If you define global warming, it's the same thing, right? When the amount of carbon dioxide in the air exceeds the limit, we call that as global warming, and that is when global warming occurs, right? So I will be explaining you the composition of air, but before that I want you all to please write all the important points from the screen. I'll even explain you about the composition of the air. So as you can see that only 20% of oxygen is present in the air, then 21% of oxygen, 78% of nitrogen, and 0.9% of argon. Along with these three, we have small proportion of other gases, which includes like 0.03% of carbon dioxide. Okay, so because it is been used up by the plant, like plants only have the 0.03% of carbon dioxide which has been present to, sorry, for us, not for plants. Then for plants they have 21% of oxygen. See, oxygen is the basic requirement for us, so we have 21% of oxygen present in the air. Plants have 0.03% of carbon dioxide and other gases which are present. 78% of nitrogen is present and 0.9% of argon is present. So I want you all to please give the topic as composition of air and do write all the percentages of gases which are present in it. I hope you all are writing about the atmosphere and about the composition of the air. I hope every one of you are writing about the atmosphere and about the composition of the air. So this is a very easy topic, right? So I want y'all to be very much clear with it in the first time itself. Okay, because you have studied this before as well, and you might be knowing about what is lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. You might be even studying this in like geography, right? Social studies. Now the next thing that we have is the role of atmosphere in climate control. So like I want you all to tell me what do you think how atmosphere can help in controlling the climate. So you can like add on your stuffs before it. I want you all to come up with some points. See, this is something which you can write on your own as well. Okay, so I want you all to come up with it. What do you think, how atmosphere can control the climate? See, now we know that atmosphere is the air that is present in the surrounding, right? So the atmosphere covers the earth like a blanket. Okay, just imagine earth and just imagine a blanket on the top of the earth. So that earth, the blanket above the earth, it is the atmosphere. Okay, and always remember that air is a bad conductor of heat. So what happens if we know that during the daytime the temperature is very high, right? So it prevents sudden increase in temperature during the day and also slows down the escape of heat during the night. Okay, so atmosphere is preventing the sudden increase in temperature during the daytime, and it is also slowing down the escape of heat during the night time. So the atmosphere keeps the average temperature of the earth fairly steady during the day and throughout the year. Okay, so the temperature of the earth has been maintained because of the atmosphere. It's controlling the temperature in some or the other way. Okay, so I want you all to write about the role of the atmosphere first, and then we'll start discussing about the movement of the air, that is wind. Now the next thing that we have is movement of air, which we know it as wind. So see, when air gets heated, it rises up and produces low pressure, and cool air moves in to take its place. Just imagine that the air has heated, the air is heated, okay? So the temperature will rise up, and because of this increase in temperature, low pressure will be produced and the air will move into it, okay? So the movement of the air causes wind. What does it cause? The movement of the air causes wind, and during the day, the land gets heated faster than the sea. What will happen? During the daytime, the land will get heated faster than the sea. So the hot air above the land will rise up and will cool air from the sea will move towards the end. And during the night time, we know that sea cools down slowly than the land, right? So the hot air above the sea will rise up and cool air from the land will move towards the sea. Okay, so this is how you can say, this is how the air keeps on moving. Okay. I want you all to write this as well. Okay, so I hope you all are done writing about the role of the atmosphere as well as the movement of the air. Now the next thing that we have is about rain. See, now we all love rain, right? There might be many like who might not be liking it because of some or the other reason. Everyone has a different choice, but mostly we are like we like rain. We go like when it's we wait for that first rain, right? And we always want to enjoy, right, in the rain. So now how exactly the rain occurs, how it rains exactly. Okay, so that is the process that we are going to study later as well while we discuss on water cycle. But before that we have cloud formation, which has been explained over here. Okay, so let's see what has been given. When water bodies are heated, and like when water bodies are heated during the day, a large amount of water evaporates and rises up. What happens? Large amount of water will evaporate and it will rise up, right? So some water bodies, they also get into the atmosphere due to the biological activities like transpiration. Now transpiration is loss of water from the tip of the plant. So some of the water bodies, they are you can say getting evaporated, and some of them are also like some of it is also happening because of biological activities like transpiration. Okay, so as the water vapor rises, it cools and condenses to form tiny droplets of water. What will happen? As and when the water vapor will rise, it will cool and condense to form tiny droplet of water, and this tiny droplets, they are going to go inside the cloud, and this appears as cloud to us. So when the tiny droplets of water join together, they form bigger drops of water. What will happen? When tiny drop of water will join together, they will form this bigger drop of water, and ultimately they will fall as rain, snow, or hail. It can be anything. Okay. So if you can see the picture that has been shown over here, as the heading goes like cloud formation, can you see the ocean gets heated because of the sun in the afternoon, because of which the water will get evaporated. So evaporation is happening and the moisture in the air will get condensed. So condensation process will occur and the tiny droplets will go in like will go into the cloud, and this tiny droplets, they come together and they make a big drop of water, and then they are going to fall down as rain, snow, or hail. Getting it, everyone? You have to even draw this cloud formation part, writing evaporation, condensation, and lastly how the cloud has been formed. Okay? I hope you all are writing this. After this, now the next thing that we have is about the air pollution that I'm going to discuss in the next class. Okay, so we will be discussing on this air pollution in detail in the next class. Then we'll discuss on water, which is a wonder liquid, then about the water pollution. Then we'll discuss on soil, how exactly the formation of the soil takes place, what is the exact composition of the soil, and soil pollution in detail. Like we are discussing on all the natural resources. Okay, so like today we discussed about air. In the next class we will be discussing on water, and lastly about the soil as well, where we will be discussing on the composition of the soil, soil pollution, and more about soil in detail. Okay. Then we have soil erosion as well. Like we will be discussing on air pollution, water pollution. So soil also get polluted some or the other how, right? So we will be discussing on soil erosion in detail, and under that we will be discussing this activity that is on effect of flowing water on topsoil. So we'll discuss on that. Then we have the most important part of the lesson, that is the biogeochemical cycles. Now biogeochemical cycles, we have four different cycles which are very important for our existence. We will be discussing on that. So for that we have water cycle to discuss, we have nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, and lastly we have oxygen cycle. So these are the four different biogeochemical cycle that we will be discussing at the end of the lesson. So for water cycle we will be discussing on it Like always remember how to draw water cycle, which are the different processes which are taking place. Like over here you can see evaporation, condensation, transpiration, respiration, right? So we will be discussing all in detail. Okay, then after water cycle we will be discussing on nitrogen cycle in detail. So nitrogen cycle, like how exactly, if you remember in part 1 I told you that plants cannot use the atmospheric nitrogen directly, right? So what they do is they convert this atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, nitrates or nitrites, and then only it is possible for them to use it. So we will be discussing on nitrogen cycle, and this is how nitrogen cycle looks like. Okay, and you can see that there are different processes which occur in the nitrogen cycle. Like we have nitrification, ammonification, then we have denitrification, nitrogen fixation. These are the different types of processes which goes in nitrogen cycle. Then next we have is carbon cycle. Okay, now carbon becomes like carbon is an essential part, right, in of our life again as well, and that is how we will be discussing on carbon cycle. That is how exactly carbon is getting into the you can say into the atmosphere, right? So we will be discussing on the carbon cycle, and lastly we have oxygen cycle to discuss in detail. Okay, so all the four cycles that we have, okay, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, then water cycle and nitrogen cycle, all the four cycles are important. So I want y'all to make sure whenever I start with the cycles, you are knowing how to draw that cycle and which are the different processes which are involved in that cycle. And then we will be discussing on the greenhouse effect, because greenhouse gases are the one which are having a negative impact on our environment. So what are the different effects of greenhouse on our earth? We will be discussing on that. And after greenhouse effect, we will discuss on ozone layer. Okay, now ozone layer is very helpful for us, so it's very important because we have this chlorofluorocarbons which are damaging the earth. So ozone layer is preventing us from that. Okay, then after ozone layer we have the summary discussion that we will be doing it for the whole lesson. So we'll discuss on that, and then we have few exercise questions to discuss at the end. For the lessons, I'm going to show you the questions. I want each one of you to please go through the questions quickly. I hope you all are going through the question that I'm showing you on screen. So this is how we will be ending up with the whole lesson, natural resources. And I hope whatever we discussed today in this part for the lesson, natural resources, every one of you have understood it. And now the rest of the part for the lesson, I will be continuing that in the next part. But please make sure you all are revising each and everything that we are discussing in the lesson. Okay, because unless and until you are not revising it, it won't have any impact. So make sure you revise each and everything that we are discussing. Okay, so I'll end this part over here, and I will be starting with the next part in the, like, whatever is left in the lesson in the next part. Thank you everyone.